Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Eye on the Industry podcast. And let me start out by saying that you are in for an absolute treat today. Many of our listeners know that this podcast is dedicated to the optical industry, where we have conversations that cover topics like innovation, business growth, and patient care. But we also want to bring you topics that positively impact not only your professional life, but your personal life too. And today is one of those special episodes. We're going to dive into a topic that is very close to myself and Isabel, and that's the topic of leadership and living your life with purpose. And you probably know Isabel is not only my co-host on the podcast, but she's also the author of a powerful book, Love, Lead, Succeed, in which she's written 15 chapters of transformational leadership content. And today's guest actually has a quote that was featured in her book. So without further ado, Isabel, why don't you introduce our amazing guest for today's podcast?
Thank you very much, Christine. I'm beyond excited about today's conversation because we're joined by someone who is not only an incredible professional, but also a longtime friend of both of us. Michael White is a sports mental performance coach, a certified law of attraction coach, a certified grief and loss educator. He is also the founder of Yellow Car Coach, where he helps people navigate life transitions, whether they're business professionals, entrepreneurs, athletes, or individuals experiencing profound change. Michael believes deeply in the philosophy that what you focus on, you will attract a mindset that shapes not just our careers, but our lives as well. And as Christine mentioned, he's even quoted in my book, Love, Lead, Succeed, Chapter 15 again, and with one of his most powerful quote that I absolutely love, live life awake. Michael, welcome to the show. We're so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Christine. This is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, we are too. I can't tell you how excited I've been for today's conversation and having you join us on the podcast. But before we dive into leadership and those deeper conversations, we always love to start the show with a fun little icebreaker. So, in the spirit of that, I'd like to ask you a question. If you could instantly teleport anywhere in the world right now, where would you go, Michael, and why?
Right now, I would teleport to a dock lakeside in a Muskoka chair, probably with a coffee in my hand, hot coffee in my hand, early morning, crisp day, not too cold, but crisp. And one of those days where the water's like glass, the sun's bouncing off the water, the trees are bouncing off the water, and just the orange and the red and the fall colors, that ultimately is my happy place. And that's where I would go. And what's funny is I was just in Ontario literally 2 days ago, and the colors are starting to change. It's absolutely beautiful. One of my favorite times of the year. Love the colors in Ontario.
Let's go. I mean, I'm in
Yeah.
Ontario, but I mean, the way you
Let's
describe
go north.
it.
Oh yeah, I love
Love it.
Muskoka. I was just out for a walk by the lake, not in Muskoka, but Toronto this morning, and it's just so beautiful. And I could feel exactly what you imagined because it was a crisp morning this morning, and I was just enjoying the fresh air and the colors. So love that. But Mike, we're gonna go back to your powerful quote because I just like it so much. Live life awake. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the meaning of this quote and why is it so important for leaders and individuals navigating life transitions?
Wow. So Live Life Awake Live Awake came to me probably in, I think it was '05 or '06. And I started using it, as you guys know, as my email tag. And that was kind of my sign off. And it's something that in around, I guess it was '05, '06 that it was understanding that life is about now. life is about living in the moment. So living life awake for me is really living in the moment and living in the awareness of the moment. And I think that's a really important differentiator. It's about understanding each and every segment of your day can be super powerful depending on the perspective that you bring. I have a saying that I use a lot: your perspective dictates your experience. And it does 100% in everything we do. So the concept of living life awake for me is literally being present, enjoying every moment, understanding that this is the only moment we have. It's Eckhart Tolle wrote a great book called The Power of Now. And of course, yesterday's a past now, tomorrow's a future now. What can you do about either of those? Absolutely nothing. The only time we really have is now, is the present now. So let's be as focused and in in tune to the moment that we're in, and we will have a better experience if we put our attention towards that. And that usually ends up leading to better success and better results down the road. So that's sort of what live life awake means to me, and it's been following my life for 20 plus years now, and it's sort of a staple, along with a couple others that I try and live by every single day. It's not always easy, but it's a good process to go back to, most definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So then, Mike, tell us how do you know when people actually aren't living life awake? And what are some of those signs that someone might be running on autopilot, for example, rather than truly living with intention and living in the moment?
Yeah, and I think that with regards to it's different for everybody, right?
Mm.
We are all, and this is something that's come up recently for me in a lot of different meetings with clients and so forth, is that we're all different. We all experience things in different ways. If I was to blanket and say, how do you know? It's ultimately, if you're feeling good, you're in alignment with yourself. If you're
Mhm.
feeling bad, you're out of alignment with yourself. It sounds ridiculously simple, and to a certain extent it is ridiculously simple, but it's not easy. But if we actually pay attention to, am I feeling good today, then you know you're in alignment. If you're off, if you're struggling, if you're frustrated, if you're angry, then you're out of alignment. So that's the time that you need to check in and say, how can I realign myself? And certain little things, like you could buy somebody a cup of coffee and it's going to make you feel better. You're going to let somebody in on the highway. And as much as road rage is a crazy pandemic these days, depending on how you perceive the road rage, by letting somebody in on the highway, you can actually start to make a shift and make yourself feel a little better. It's little tiny things that we can do every single day to make ourselves feel better. So when you're out of alignment, you feel bad. When you're in alignment, you feel good. Make little tiny shifts, and that's going to pull you back into alignment.
Amazing.
Love that. Alignment is so powerful, and
Mm,
I really can relate to the power of now, as well as I'm a big fan of Eckhart Tolle. Have
mhm.
a couple of his books too. And by the way, Mike, if you want to see Eckhart, is coming to Toronto next May, so you might want to buy a ticket for that. But
We should go together.
we should definitely. Um, and Mike, you had such an inspiring journey. You went from leading your own very successful agency to becoming a life coach and a grief and loss educator. Can you share with us what inspired you to take this path and how those experiences really shape your mission today?
I will try and keep this short. So let's go back to 2012, 2013, specifically 2013. I was working for a specific optical company, my agency was, and they of course were making some major changes and shifting a lot of the business away from Canadian agencies, mine being one of them, into the US, which completely understand that's how business runs. We need to make decisions the way we need to make decisions. That was a relatively large hit to my business. It was a big portion of my business. That announcement, I believe, was made, and for the story, it sounds better. It was made at an event in Florida where I attended. The day after I got back from that event, my wife Kate had told me that she was diagnosed with cancer, and she didn't tell me while I was on vacation. Didn't want to, or not on the conference. She didn't want to ruin my conference. But at the end of the day, told me the day I got back. So combination of business shift and horrific cancer news spiraled me out of control, so to speak. And depression set in, anger, fear, all the horrible feelings that are associated with news like this. Really struggled, didn't know what to do. Fast forward to January, February of 13, I guess it was, or February, March of 13. I reached out to a life coaching course to see if I could help myself get through some of this. And lo and behold, through taking the course, about a 2-year course, found out that not only did the tools and strategies that helped me exponentially get through a lot of this adversity, but I was also really good at teaching it. So, fast forward to today, or fast forward to 2014, I guess it was, Kate was given 2 years to live. In 2015, we decided to sell everything we had. The kids were growing up and they were moving to college and so forth. So we bought a 40-foot motorhome and a Jeep Wrangler, and we towed the Jeep behind we called the bus jack, and the Jeep was towed. So we towed behind Jack for 3 years. So we lived on the road for 3 years, traveled North America, essentially tried to cure cancer. Sadly, in 2018, her health went sideways. We came off the road, and sadly in 19, she passed away. But it's interesting how through adversity, I reached out for help myself. And now I teach people how to deal with adversity. It's amazing how the story, if I could reverse it, I would reverse it in a second. I can't. So I find the learnings in what happened through that journey, and it allows me to provide something back to clients, which, we said off camera, makes me feel good. And that really is the purpose and the reason that I coach, is because it makes me feel really good to help other people. And there's in my estimation, there's nothing better you can do but to provide a service that helps other people and find value in it yourself.
Yeah. Wow. Your work really is very unique, deeply meaningful, and all of us, many people, all of us, including, you know, myself, we've all experienced loss in some capacity. That could be a loss in a loved one, that could be a career, even an identity shift. So how do you help people navigate these difficult transitions and come out stronger on the other side?
Yeah, I think the biggest underlying message is I sort of call myself a change coach and grief and loss educator, and I do a lot of videos online and so forth, and that's sort of my typical sign in. But really, at the end of the day, I think that it's all about perspective. And I mentioned earlier, perspective dictates your experience,
Yeah,
and it really is about perspective in absolutely everything we approach. The grief and loss world's an interesting one because everybody's different. Everybody does grief differently. And that could apply to someone who's changing a job, losing a pet. I teach a lot of people in sports, and golf and hockey specifically, the inability or the instant or the sudden inability to score or to hit a fairway. That's grief, that's loss of some sort. And we all do it differently. And there's no rule. There's no one rule. And a lot of people say, well, even when you lose a loved one, it's been, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, you know, move on. Let's move on. And my big thing is you never ever move on.
right.
You can move forward, and that's a very different thing. I'm in a new relationship and in an awesome situation with a new girl who's lovely. I think Christine, you've met Leanne.
I have. She
And
is lovely.
I've moved forward in my life,
Yeah,
but I haven't moved on. I'll never ever stop missing Kate, but
right.
that's okay. Right.
Yeah,
And it's an interesting one because a lot of people think that it's either all or nothing. You either or you move on, or you don't move on. And that's not the case at all. I'm a big proponent of you can move forward, but you never move on. How you manage it, you will manage it differently as time goes on. Absolutely. We all continue to live. Well, hopefully most of us do. And you evolve, and you grow over top of it. And so for me, It's about, understanding that you need to sometimes stay in an uncomfortable place. You need to feel helpless. You need to feel hopeless. That's actually beneficial for your growth. But then when it's time to be able to move forward, when it's time to be able to look, then it's time to shift your attention more towards appreciation, more towards gratitude, if you will, and look at it. For me, it was I was in the depths of grief around the loss, and I was all focusing on the loss.
Uh-huh.
Then eventually it got to a point where, and had to do a lot because of the strength of the relationship that Kate and I had. She gave me the ability and the strength to be able to move forward and say, let's focus on how awesome the time we had together was. And
Right.
then that changes your perspective, that changes your energy, and then you start to slowly get out of it. But everybody does it at their own pace, and we all need to understand when it's right for us. But a simple shift in perspective, to answer your question, is really the best way to start moving forward.
Right.
Yeah. I I love this. Why would you move on? Because energy never dies, right? So just move forward.
Absolutely. And it's
Mhm.
and yeah, and Isabel, you certainly know this is the, and I'm an energy guy. I mean, a lot of my law of attraction stuff was based on that. The foundation, it's neuroscience, right? It's that was my teaching. That's what I understand. Not everybody comprehends that and understands it, but those who do, we can get some pretty amazing results just understanding that your energy is everything and what you bring to the table ultimately dictates the experience you have and very often the successes you have
Hmm.
in anything you do.
Agree.
Absolutely. And as you know, Michael, this podcast is deeply rooted in the optical industry. So many of our listeners are leaders, practice owners, eye care professionals who manage teams and face unique challenges. So, from your perspective, what does heart centered leadership look like, especially in high pressure industries like healthcare and the optical industry?
Mm. I love it was a book and I'm trying to remember who wrote it. It might have been Maxwell. It was High Road Leadership. And the concept in that book was there's high road leadership, there's mid road leadership, and there's low road leadership. And high road leadership is literally about giving. It's not about taking. And in my estimation as a leader, it's understanding a few things. One of them to me is the fact that your employees, your people that are in your charge are the most important asset that you have. And I understand the value of shareholders. I understand the value of bottom line. And don't get me wrong, super important. But as a high road leader, so to speak, understanding that your people are the engine that drive it, and you as the leader have the ability to guide them in the direction you want to guide them, and that boils down to culture. And culture is such a huge thing. It's such an overused word, but it's so accurate because you as a leader get to guide that culture. How you treat people, ultimately, I always say, people say, "What's your legacy?" My attitude is, your legacy is what people say about you when you leave the room.
Hmm.
Right? So that's a living legacy. How are you treating people? How are you treating others? How do they look at you? How do they look up to you? As a leader, if the people under you aren't respecting you and aren't seeing in you what they want to emulate, then you're not doing your job as well as you can. And so that's part of what I do when I teach leaders is teach, they'll ask me to come in and work with an organization. I always work with the CEO or the leader first and say, okay, what are you doing? How are you representing the brand that you want to represent? How are you acting? It's like in parenting, it's, my dad used to say to me years and years ago, don't do as I do as I say. Well, you think about that, right? The same thing applies in business. Leaders will come up and say, do this, do this, do this, and they're doing something completely different. Well, that's not going to work, right? And never works long term. Might work short term, absolutely. And I get the importance of that element, and it works in certain industries at certain times. But if you want something that's going to have a some long term value, you need to work from a high road leadership perspective, which ultimately is more about giving than it is taking. And even the give versus take is the mid road leadership as I want this, I'm going to give this, but I expect this in return. That's not the way it works, in my opinion. As a leader, I think that when things go wrong, you take responsibility for it. as you know, I ran a marketing agency for years, and we made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. And it might have been one of my printers that messed up a job on the press. Well, I take responsibility for that. I don't blame the printer, right? We
Mhm.
need to, as leaders, be responsible for any of the mistakes, but then also pass along any of the credit and not take the credit. It's a little bit of a thankless job when you think about it as a leader, but
Yeah,
who you are determines whether or not you can do that or not. And um, yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
absolutely. Not always easy, but very powerful. And
It's not easy, and I get it. There's a lot of pressure, right? There's a lot of pressure from shareholders, from other areas, bottom lines. It's hard. I get it. I'm certainly conscious of that. However, you can lead by example. You can lead with love, like as you say, Isabel. And I love that in your book is lead with love. And if someone's having a hard time, don't yell at them. Don't knock them down. Don't ask them what's going on. You okay? Everything all right at home? Get to know the people in your industry because at least for now we still have people, and so I say while we still have people, let's treat people as people and treat them as you want to be treated. Right? Again, when you walk out of the room, what are people saying about you? That's your legacy.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Michael, talking about Isabel's book, Love Leads Succeed, in leading with love, as you mentioned, to create that success. Is there anything more that you wanted to add in terms of how your coaching philosophy aligns with the ideas that she's written about in her book? And how can leaders start applying them in their own organizations? Is there anything more you wanted to add to that?
I would say that it starts with you, and Isabel's obviously spot on this topic,
Yeah.
and it's as the leader understanding that you're the nucleus, you're the engine, so to speak. And I think a lot of leaders, they get torn in so many different directions that
Yeah.
they don't have the energy that they need to be the best they can be. And, we talked earlier off camera about not being selfish, but being about self. And when you take care of yourself, especially as a leader, and I work with coaches, I work with all kinds of different leaders. And as the coach, as the leader, you need to be in the best possible place you can be in order to give the best of yourself to somebody else. And
Yeah.
if you're not, you're doing an injustice to yourself and more importantly to the people within your charge.
Mhm.
So I would say the most important element is make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And whether or not that's eating properly, whether or not that's working out, whether or not that's mindfulness, be it whatever practice, meditation, whatever, who knows? It's different for everybody. But ultimately, incorporate some habits, some daily habits that you can ensure are helping you be the best you can be, and understanding that unless you bring your best, you're not really helping anybody, especially yourself. So
Yeah.
it starts with you. It definitely starts with you.
It's interesting. It took me a long time to realize that just taking care of yourself, and it could be something as simple to your point, going out for a walk every morning before you
Mhm.
start your day, just clearing your mind, organizing your day, what you need to do. You're really putting your day in focus. You're getting some fresh air, you're getting that sunlight. It took me years to
Mhm.
realize that just those little changes make such a huge positive impact to your day. And so thanks for bringing that up because, I just think that that's something, a little shift, and if you consistently do that over time, it reaps long-term benefits. So,
Yeah, I call them SATs, and not the ones you write to get into college in the US, but smart, attainable targets. And it's the little tiny habits or the little tiny actions that you take every single day that will make you better. And whether or not that's 5 minutes of reading mindfulness or doing 10 push-ups or 20 squats or whatever it might be, having a walk every day for 30 minutes, whatever you can implement in, it's not something that's going to happen short term, right? It's like going to the gym. You're not going to go to the gym once and get buff. You need to train it. You need to do it consistently and habitually. And it's not being motivated, it's being disciplined. And when you do little things like that day in and day out, you teach yourself to be disciplined. So, and I've got a series of them that I do, and I'm a hiker. I'm fortunate enough to live in Vancouver, and I've got some beautiful hikes, and I'll do 5, 6K 5 days a week, and it's an incredible break for me. It refreshes me. It helps ground me. Plus, I know that hopefully when I'm 80, 85 years of age, I'm going to be healthy enough to be able to be that guy who's walking out there. I don't want to live a sedentary lifestyle. I want to make sure that I'm active, and I figure it starts now. So I'm doing it now, not just for now, but for the future as well. And
Yeah.
if we incorporate little SATs, little smart attainable targets every single day, it's amazing. It's so powerful how it's going to build to a better future for us.
Yeah, yeah. Do things that bring you joy. That's the other thing that I
Yeah.
think aligns with that. I recently, I've golfed for years, but I got away from it for a good 8 years, just because of things going on in my
Mhm.
personal life, aging parents, priority shifting, a demanding work schedule. And honestly, I've also incorporated golf back into my life again, and it's unbelievable how much joy that brought me. Just getting out on the golf course and walking and being with friends, spending more time with my husband, doing an activity that we enjoy doing together. So I love all of this because again, those smart, attainable targets are just so
Mm.
important.
Yeah, and speaking of golf, I'll give my son a little plug. He's a pro. He teaches up in Barrie, Ontario, and I caddied for him last Tuesday at a pro event that he was playing in, and one of
Wow.
the best experiences that I've had in my life is caddying for him. He played great. He ended up finishing third in the tournament, made a little bit of money, and good for him. But it was just the experience of being with him, and golf can pull that together. I mean, I love the game of golf,
Yeah.
but ultimately, when I can share it with my son or friends or family, that's awesome. How good is that? Yeah, it was a blast.
You
100%.
must have been such a proud dad,
Oh,
and
you kidding me?
yeah. And
That's
little
my boy.
buddy.
Taught him everything he knows.
And I just wanted to say to my co-host, little buddy, if you ever need golf lessons, I'm here for you, where the professional lives.
Thank you so much.
Good to
Yeah.
know. That's funny.
And Michael, in my book, I talk a lot about transformation, and we touched on that quite a bit already because we mentioned it starts with transforming yourself, and how do you really become your best self? Is that you need some self awareness, and I know you touched on this a little bit about like how do you go through like personal growth and how do you really become your best self.
I think a lot of what we talked about already is paramount. I think the other thing is, which is really, really important, is embracing adversity. Is one of the things that we don't do a lot is we don't embrace adversity. We push back against adversity. I talk about pushing against versus pulling towards. Adversity is actually showing up for us to help us. It's you think about anything that went wrong, any failure that you had, you learn from failures, you don't learn from successes.
Mhm.
So when failures show up though, we just instantly push against them, and this isn't fair and that isn't fair, and we fight so hard against adversity. And I think one of the most important things that you can do in any section of your life, your sport, your business, your family, your relationships, is to look at adversity when it shows up and say, "Hmm, this is here to help me. How's it helping me? What can I see within this adversity that can benefit me to be better moving forward?" And I think when you do that, you almost embrace it as opposed to pushing against it, and you see it as helpful as opposed to hurtful. It makes a huge difference, and you learn so much faster, and that's where our growth lies. And I think when we look back on most adversities in our lives, and some of them are horrific, others are not so big, but they all taught us something. They all taught us to be something and do something maybe a little bit different that was benefiting us down the road. And so the problem is when you're in the middle of adverse conditions, you don't always see it that way. What I try and do is train people to put their brains in a spot where, this is really bad. Bring it on. What's it trying to do for me? how's this helping me? And when you do that, you shift your energy, right? And you become a little more focused on how's this helping me as opposed to how's this hurting me. And so I think embracing adversity is probably the most important element in regards to that, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Learning from that, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
making shifts and changes in order to get beyond, I guess, that adversity.
Mhm. At the same time, let me add that
Mhm.
when adversity comes, and I mentioned it a little bit when we were talking about the grief and loss part, is that sometimes you need to sit in the pain.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of people, try and push aside. We avoid the pain because it's uncomfortable. I feel helpless. I feel hopeless. This is not comfortable, so I'm going to skirt it. I'm going to push it aside. I'm going to push it down. And that's one of the issues that I think a lot of us have is that we don't feel the pain, and therefore we don't sort of go through the adversity or the pain. And if you don't go through it, you don't get past it, and
Right.
then it shows up down the road in some other form through another situation, and sometimes will buckle us even harder. And
Mhm.
that's a really important one to understand. So feeling it is really important, and being in that negative space, as much as it hurts, sometimes it's the best thing for us. It's sometimes it's exactly what we need to move us forward.
Yeah, it helps you heal. And stifling
100%.
that pain and, as you said, not going through it and experiencing it, it'll never go away, and you're right, it'll show up later, and it could be even worse, and,
Always does. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Got to feel it.
yep, for sure. Mike, your philosophy of what you focus on, you attract is incredibly powerful. And it can work in both negative and positive ways, depending on what you're focusing your thoughts on. So, can you break down for our listeners and share some practical ways that people can shift their focus to create positive outcomes, whether it's in business or even in our personal lives?
And I think I mean, I love the tagline I was showing you guys earlier. I've got a tattoo on my arm of what you focus on, you or Wifoya as I call it. That's
Yeah.
how much I believe in this stuff, and
Mhm.
it's yeah, it's kind of self-explanatory, but it's something that again, we don't innately go to. It's when I was a little kid, I lived in Toronto, and my dad had a good friend in Montreal, and we would drive the 5.5, 6 hours to Montreal somewhat regularly. And my dad created a game called Yellow Car, and hence the name of the business. And the whole idea was, look for as many yellow cars on the road. And this is back in the 70s, and there weren't many yellow cars, but if you focused on them, if you really only dialed it down to I'm only looking for yellow cars, it's amazing they actually a few of them showed up. Well, of course, my dad was doing the game to shut my sister and I up in the back seat so we wouldn't be bothering them. But at the end of the day, what I realized, and the reason that I named my business Yellow Car Coach, was because that was the metaphor to exactly what I'm trying to teach. What you focus on, you attract. What you think about on a daily basis, what you talk about on a daily basis, how you talk about it. Are you talking in negatives constantly all day? Most of us do. Or are you talking in positives all day? What's the conversation you're having with coworkers, with your families? Be conscious of that. That's back to live life awake, right? Be aware, be in the moment and understand what it is you're talking about, what you're thinking about, even when you're on your own. Am I thinking negative thoughts, or am I thinking about something that I would love to have, or want to do, or want to be? And that's even better. But everything needs to tie back into emotion, though, and that's a really important one. I talk a lot about gratitude, for example, and you can do gratitude one way, you can do gratitude another way. Ultimately, if you're grateful and you attach emotion to it and feeling to it, you're doing it the right way. If you're strictly writing words on paper, it's a waste of time because you're just writing words on paper. So that's a really big piece of it. And I think your focus, you need to be consciously aware of your focus. When you do that, better things happen, or at least you're going to have a better experience. Again, your perspective dictates your experience, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, this really resonates with me because I've written so much about this in my book
Mm,
too, and it comes down to really intentional leadership and vision. And one thing I wanted to tell you, Mike, is Just so that you know, now every time I see a yellow car, I always think of you. So I wish you well every time I see a yellow car. Oh, Michael White.
Mm.
So I
Well,
just wanted
every
to
time I see a yellow car,
yeah.
I say to myself, I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
it's a symbol for me that says I'm on the
yeah.
right path.
Yeah.
Right. It was so funny. So just literally a month ago, I was meeting with, colleagues or potential new clients or conduits to new clients, building my network, so to speak. And I was having coffee with this one guy. And and we're outside, a local coffee shop in Vancouver here, and nice weather. We're outside having coffee, and I'm telling him a yellow car story. And he just kind of looks over my shoulder and points. And there's a yellow car pulls up right beside us. He says, "Did you cue that?" I'm like, "No, that's how it works." And literally a week later, same thing happened with somebody else. And so it's amazing how powerful that our energy is and what we put attention to. And if you're constantly putting attention to negativity and you're wondering why your life's negative, well, think about it.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
change what you're thinking, change what you're focusing on. Yeah, it's powerful.
I want to mention too one thing that I thought was really interesting too, Mike. I was watching one of your TikTok videos recently, and you were in your car, and you literally, I don't, you know what one I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah,
Literally in the background, there's a yellow Jeep. And
yeah,
I thought, oh my gosh, he couldn't have planned that better. So,
yeah.
you're living it, obviously.
It's so funny because when that happened, I was actually, where was I? I was in a Soyuz, British Columbia,
Okay.
and I was up, up at the lookout, and no one's around. And sure enough, this Jeep comes in as I'm recording, and all I'm thinking as I'm recording is, "This is so good, don't mess this up." Right? So I need to keep this one. Don't mess this one up. It was very funny. Yeah, but again, it's you buy a new car, how many of those cars do you see?
Right.
You think of something, it shows up for you. If you think of a
Yeah.
person that you haven't seen in ages, all of a sudden they come across a feed somewhere or someone
Right.
mentions them. It's
Yeah.
it's it's no coincidence. It's energy, right?
Right.
So be careful how you're guiding your energy, because how you're guiding it will determine what shows up for you. And
Yeah.
and that works to your point, Christine, you said at the beginning, it works in a positive way and a negative way.
Yeah.
And we get to control, right? We're that powerful. We get to control how we want to guide that. And that's something to understand and realize. But you can't say it out loud over and over and over again when you're feeling the exact opposite. It's a lot of people, and I was taught years ago to use I am statements. I am abundant, I am healthy, I am this, I am that. If you're saying I am abundant, but you're living in a state of lack,
Mhm.
Mhm.
you're actually saying to yourself, yeah, BS, I don't really believe that. And the subconscious mind will overtake the conscious statement. So I'm a big proponent now, instead of saying I am abundant, for example, just simply say abundance. Or I am healthy, just simply say health. And
Right.
and what that means to you, you get to decide.
Mm.
And there's an interest, because a lot of people will use, and don't get me wrong, I think I am statements are great in certain applications, but I also think they're detrimental in other situations. So you need to be careful with what you do and what you say and how you say it and how you feel
Yeah.
when you say it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, feelings are very important in the law of attraction and actions too. But how would you say, Mike, that leaders could use the principles of intentional leaderships and vision and the law of attraction to really grow their business and also create a positive culture for their team?
I think it's a lot of what we were just talking about. I think it's about having a vision. It's about understanding what's important to you. I think it's about understanding where you're putting your focus. There's so much surrounding that, right? At the end of the day, again, what you focus on, you attract. If you're worried about and focusing on the negative implications of your business or what somebody's doing wrong, then you're pushing against. If you're focusing on ways that you can help them overcome that and learn from it, back to adversity, right? If you can learn and understand and put your focus on how you can help them use this as a strength and not a weakness, then you're heading in the right direction. So it's constantly moving the ball forward, right? It's you think so much about we're in a society of what's next, what's next, what's next. And I'm not always a huge proponent of that, but at certain times it's how can we use what's going on right now to be better next? And that's really important to me. I think that's valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
I love it. I love this conversation. I love this whole topic. It's been such a
Mm,
great chat today, Mike. So before we let you go, we
mm,
always like to end with some fun questions. And so I want to ask you a series of rapid fire questions,
mm.
um, and end the podcast off today. So are we ready?
Shoot.
Okay. What's one song that instantly puts you in a good mood?
Industrial Disease, which is kind of funny, by Dire Straits. I don't know why, but that
Oh,
song just it's the guitar riff or whatever it is, just the just it's so much fun, and it just I'll go on a bike ride and I'll have that in my ear, or I'll be on a hike and all of a sudden I'm running up a hill because it just gives me energy. I don't know what it is about
yeah.
this song. It's always been one of many, but it's sort of the song. If you go through my playlist, it'll be probably the most played song. So yeah, "Industrial Disease" by Dire Straits.
Okay. I haven't heard that song in ages. So you know what? After this, I'm going to go and listen to it because it's a good song. You're right. All right. Question number
Yeah,
two.
it's a great song.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Hmm. It's funny. This one's a hard one. I'm gonna say my grandfather. Papa
Oh,
Jack. He was the guy who taught me to skate when I was 2. He was the guy who taught me to swim. He was the guy who taught me to drive. He had
mm,
such an impact in my life, and he was the guy who I want to be. He was the guy who cared about people, who looked after people, and he's who I try and emulate my life over. So he's as historical as anybody else in the world, in my estimation. So I would love to just sit down and have a chat with him again.
oh, that's wonderful. I'm sure he would be very proud to know that. That's amazing.
Mm,
All right.
he was a good guy.
Next question. Um, what's your guilty pleasure snack while binge watching a show?
Dark chocolate.
Oh,
Anything dark chocolate, I am yeah, it's a weakness. I've
I
got a
love
bit of a sweet tooth. Anybody who knows me knows that. I'm trying to keep tabs on that. But at the end of the day, dark chocolate, oh, all day.
pair
Absolutely.
that with a glass of red wine, and I'm right there with you.
Oh, there you go.
It's the best combination.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, great. Okay. Next question's more related to the optical industry. If you had to choose one pair of glasses to wear for the rest of your life, would you pick a bold, colorful frame or something classic and timeless?
I guess it's interesting. I've got a few pairs of glasses, and these are good for office and seeing the computer. These I love because they have a bit of a statement to them. And so
Uh,
I wouldn't say it's necessarily, I mean, it's bold, but it's not bold and colorful bold. But
right.
I like the idea of something with a little bit of an impact, and I always say stand out, don't fit in. And that's why. Be
Yeah.
recognized, be noticeable. And I love that. I love people who just go right out there. I'm not there. I'm not that guy yet. I wear gray and black all the time. But at the end of the day, a glass like this to me is a little bit bolder, a little bit more of a statement. I love this. Yeah. Stand out, don't fit in.
Yeah. It's very cool. Great frames.
Now I gotta see you. There you go.
Yeah. There you go.
Progressives
All
are
right.
hard to get used to, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, they can be, depending on the lens design for sure. They can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can help you out in that regard, by the way.
I know you can.
All right. Last question. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Hard no.
Thank you.
Hard no. Yeah.
We're still friends.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. If someone's ordered the pizza and there's a little pineapple on it, I'll still eat it and be polite. But yeah, it's a no for me.
Oh,
It
I'll pick
doesn't
it
belong
off.
there.
I don't like it. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, Michael, we want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your heart with us today. You're an amazing professional and a great friend as well. And I just wanted to say that we're very grateful that you accepted to join us on the Eye on the Industry podcast. And for our listeners, if you want to learn more about Michael's coaching and resources, you can reach him directly at on his email at mike@yellowcarcoach.com, or visit his website at yellowcarcoach.com as well. Easy to remember. And if you're looking for other inspiration, you can always check out my book, Love Lead Succeed, on Amazon or on my website, which is also loveleadsucceed.ca. You'll find an amazing quote, Live Life Awake, from Michael White in chapter 15. Christine, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling so inspired right now.
Oh my gosh, same here, Isabel. And Michael, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today and sharing your expertise, your insights, and your wisdom. It was such an inspiring and important conversation to have, and I know everyone will benefit from it.
Well, thank you both. It's always a pleasure seeing you. I love you guys. It's so much fun to chat with you. And yeah, it's my pleasure. Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. And to our listeners, we're sending you a huge thank you for joining us today. Your support means the world to us. So be sure to tune in next time for more conversations that will help you thrive in both your business and your personal life. And remember, stay sharp, stay focused, and keep your eye on the industry. Bye for now, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Eye on the Industry podcast. And now for the legal stuff. Just a quick note, the views and opinions shared in this episode are those of our guests and our hosts, and don't necessarily reflect those of our employers, sponsors, or partners. Our conversations are meant to inform, inspire, and entertain, not a replacement for professional advice.